Welcome back to the Rise Up podcast, where we empower you with the tools and knowledge to find your inner strength and push through life's toughest challenges. I'm your host, and today we're diving into an important topic, focusing on your strengths rather than getting caught up in your weaknesses. We'll be exploring real-life stories, lessons learned, and how changing your mindset can open up new paths for growth and success. And as always, for those of you who need it, a PDF transcript of this episode is available. Just check the link in the description to download your copy. Story of a struggling student. I had a young student once who was really struggling. His mom dragged him to my class because she was worried about his poor pronunciation and lack of logic in his speech. She told me she couldn't understand a word he was saying. Now, most people would have thought, wow, this kid has a lot of problems to fix. But when I got to know him, I realized something amazing. He was incredibly thoughtful and kind-hearted, not like most boys his age. So, instead of focusing on all the things that were wrong, I asked him, "Have you ever thought about becoming a TV announcer?" He shook his head. So I called his mom in and said, "Here's the deal. If you stop pointing out his weaknesses and start praising his kindness and thoughtfulness, I guarantee he'll be school president by the time he's in 6th grade. Guess what? 6 months later, he became the school president with overwhelming votes. All because we stopped obsessing over his flaws and started amplifying his strengths. The personal struggles I faced. Now let me take you back to a time when I had to learn this lesson myself. I used to be a top speech instructor, loved by students and respected by parents. But when I got married and had a baby, I had to quit because there was no maternity leave. One day, while holding my baby on my shoulder and trying to eat a spoonful of rice, I suddenly lost it. I called my husband, furious, and yelled, "You get to sit down and eat? You should be standing while eating like me." Looking back, I know why I was so angry. I wasn't doing what I loved anymore, teaching. So a few days later, I partnered with a friend, scraped together some money, and started a small speech school for kids. We had no money, barely any resources, and just the two of us as instructors. 3 months into it, COVID hit, and we lost the few students we had. We thought we were done for. Turning point, embracing our strengths. Feeling lost, we decided to check out what other schools were doing. These schools were fancy, big buildings, lots of staff, state-of-the-art equipment. Meanwhile, we had 2 teachers, an old building, and no flashy marketing. We felt tiny in comparison, so we said, forget about competing on what we don't have, let's focus on what we're good at. What were we good at? Drawing out kids' genuine thoughts and feelings, helping them express their true selves. While other schools focused on perfecting speech techniques and pronunciation, we centered on authenticity. So we revamped everything, our curriculum, our materials, even our marketing. And we started calling ourselves the school that helps kids say what they really think. The power of strength-based focus. One day, an incredibly elegant woman walked into our school. She wanted her daughter to improve her thinking skills. This girl was great at answering math and English questions, but when asked for her opinion, she'd just give short, vague answers like, "It was fun," or "I liked it." We worked with her, focused on helping her bring out her deeper thoughts. Eventually, she decided to run for student council president. And won. After that, our phones wouldn't stop ringing. We were overwhelmed with requests for classes, and parents didn't even want to try our usual free demo class. They just signed up. We found out later that the elegant mom was a well-known education influencer who had posted about us on Instagram. That one post changed everything. Why focusing on weaknesses doesn't work. Imagine if we had kept trying to fix our weaknesses. If we'd tried to compete with those bigger schools by buying expensive equipment we couldn't afford or hiring more staff, we would have gone bankrupt. Instead, by doubling down on our strengths, we saw the path forward. This lesson applies to all of us. How many times have you beaten yourself up for what you can't do, instead of owning what you can do? We spend so much energy hiding or fixing our flaws, but what if we invested that same energy into building up what we're naturally great at? The business breakthrough. Even when we applied for government grants, we initially failed, over 30 times. My husband, frustrated by my tears, read my business plan and said, I wouldn't fund you either. What makes your school different from all the others? That was a gut punch, but he was right. We rewrote the plan, highlighting how we bring out kids' real thoughts and expressions, and we finally got the funding. We didn't get it by begging or pointing out our financial struggles. We got it by selling our unique strengths. Takeaway for everyone. I know it's easy to get stuck thinking about what you don't have. Maybe you don't have the money, the education, or the resources you think you need. But focusing on those weaknesses will only hold you back. Instead, put a spotlight on your strengths, the things that make you, you. Whether you're a business owner or someone who's failed one too many times, stop worrying about your weak points. Don't ignore them, but don't let them define you. Your strengths are what will take you further than you can imagine. Invest in what you naturally do best. The struggle of focusing on weaknesses. Let me ask you something. How many times have you caught yourself obsessing over your weaknesses? Be honest. It's so easy to get trapped in that mindset, right? Whether it's because of what other people point out about us or because we're always comparing ourselves to others, we tend to fixate on the things we can't do. And you know what? That's exhausting. I've seen it in parents. They bring their kids to me and say, "My child isn't good at this," or "My child is behind in that." And you can hear the frustration, the fear of falling behind. So, what do? They enroll their kid in one class after another, hoping to fix those weaknesses. If the kid is bad at math, they'll sign up for extra math tutoring. If their speaking skills aren't great, they'll find a speech class. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with wanting your child to improve, but sometimes parents, and we ourselves, get so caught up in what's not working that we completely miss what is working. I had a parent once who came to me and said her daughter was amazing at answering questions with a set answer, like math problems or grammar exercises. But when it came to anything that required creativity or personal opinion, the only response she'd give was, "It was okay," or "It was fun." She was worried that her daughter wasn't thinking deeply enough. But instead of trying to fix the daughter's thinking process by making her analyze more, we focused on helping her express what was already in her head. We gave her the tools to bring out her inner thoughts, and that's when she really started to shine. The lesson here? Instead of constantly looking for what's wrong, try to see what's already strong. It's much more powerful to build on what you naturally excel at than to spend all your energy trying to patch up every little flaw. A personal turning point. I used to struggle with this too. When I was a speech instructor, I was great at teaching classes. My students loved me, and I could see the path for each one of them. But every week, I'd get pulled into the director's office and hear the same feedback. "You're not doing well in parent consultations." I tried so hard to improve. I practiced. I worked on my responses. But no matter how much effort I put in, I never felt confident in those meetings. And guess what? After all that practice, I'm still better at teaching than at talking to parents. Why? Because teaching is my strength. It comes naturally to me. That's where my passion and skill meet. If I had kept obsessing over my consultations, I would have missed out on what I'm truly good at, teaching kids. So I stopped beating myself up about it and focused on what made me a great teacher. And because of that, I didn't just stay good, I became great. I became one of the top instructors in my area. Now, I'm not saying we should ignore our weaknesses entirely. Of course, we need to be aware of them. But the key is to stop letting them run the show. Instead, double down on your strengths. That's where the real magic happens. The following vocabulary list includes 15 commonly used American expressions, phrases, and idioms found in the previous sections. These words and phrases are frequently heard in everyday conversations and can help learners of English sound more natural when speaking with Americans. Each word or phrase comes with a definition and example sentence to help you understand how to use them effectively. Obsessing over meaning. To focus too much on something, especially in a way that causes stress or anxiety. Example, stop obsessing over every little mistake and focus on what you're good at. Once again, obsessing over meaning. To focus too much on something, especially in a way that causes stress or anxiety. Example, Stop obsessing over every little mistake and focus on what you're good at. Fixate on meaning. To focus on something excessively, often to an unhealthy degree. Example, many people fixate on their weaknesses instead of recognizing their strengths. Once again, fixate on meaning. To focus on something excessively, often to an unhealthy degree. Example, many people fixate on their weaknesses instead of recognizing their strengths. Caught up in meaning. To become involved in something, often unintentionally or too deeply. Example, it's easy to get caught up in comparisons and forget about your own progress. Once again, caught up in meaning. To become involved in something, often unintentionally or too deeply. Example, it's easy to get caught up in comparisons and forget about your own progress. Scrape together, meaning, to gather or collect something, usually money, with difficulty. Example, we scraped together just enough money to start our small business. Once again, scrape together, meaning, to gather or collect something, usually money, with difficulty. Example, we scraped together just enough money to start our small business. Double down on, meaning, to increase one's efforts or focus on something, especially after failure or challenge. Example, after their initial failure, they decided to double down on their strengths. Once again, double down on, meaning, to increase one's efforts or focus on something, especially after failure or challenge. Example, after their initial failure, they decided to double down on their strengths. Top tier, meaning, the best or highest level of something, especially in terms of quality or skill. Example, she's a top-tier instructor in her field, known for her innovative teaching methods. Once again, top tier, meaning, the best or highest level of something, especially in terms of quality or skill. Example, she's a top-tier instructor in her field, known for her innovative teaching methods. Make or break, meaning, to be the deciding factor that leads to either success or failure. Example, this meeting could make or break the deal, so we need to be well prepared. Once again, make or break, meaning, to be the deciding factor that leads to either success or failure. Example, this meeting could make or break the deal, so we need to be well prepared. Gut punch, meaning, something that feels shocking, upsetting, or disappointing. Example, hearing that our business plan wasn't good enough was a real gut punch, but we used that feedback to improve. Once again, gut punch, meaning, something that feels shocking, upsetting, or disappointing. Example, hearing that our business plan wasn't good enough was a real gut punch, but we used that feedback to improve. Amplify, meaning, to make something stronger, more intense, or more noticeable. Example, instead of hiding her talent, she decided to amplify it by showcasing her work. Once again, amplify, meaning, to make something stronger, more intense, or more noticeable. Example, instead of hiding her talent, she decided to amplify it by showcasing her work. Bankrupt, meaning, unable to pay debts, financially ruined. Example, if we kept trying to compete by focusing on our weaknesses, we would have gone bankrupt. Once again, bankrupt, meaning, unable to pay debts, financially ruined. Example, if we kept trying to compete by focusing on our weaknesses, we would have gone bankrupt. Pull into, meaning, to call or bring someone into a situation or meeting. Example, I was constantly pulled into the director's office for feedback sessions. Once again, pull into, meaning, to call or bring someone into a situation or meeting. Example, I was constantly pulled into the director's office for feedback sessions. Go all in, meaning, to fully commit to a decision, action, or strategy. Example, once they realized their strength, they decided to go all in on their unique teaching approach. Once again, go all in, meaning, to fully commit to a decision, action, or strategy. Example, once they realized their strength, they decided to go all in on their unique teaching approach. Bump up, meaning, to increase something, often in terms of quantity or quality. Example, after the review went viral, our student numbers bumped up by 50%. Once again, bump up, meaning, to increase something, often in terms of quantity or quality. Example, after the review went viral, our student numbers bumped up by 50%. Game changer, meaning, something that completely changes the outcome of a situation. Example, switching our focus to our strengths was a real game changer for our business. Once again, game changer, meaning, something that completely changes the outcome of a situation. Example, switching our focus to our strengths was a real game changer for our business. Spotlight meaning to focus attention on something or someone. Example, she put the spotlight on her unique skills, and that's when people started noticing her. Once again, spotlight meaning to focus attention on something or someone. Example, she put the spotlight on her unique skills, and that's when people started noticing her. Thank you for joining me on the Rise Up podcast today. I hope today's episode inspired you to take a closer look at your own strengths and realize how much potential you already have. Remember, success doesn't come from fixing every flaw. It comes from doubling down on what makes you unique. Be sure to download the PDF transcript of this episode if you need it, and don't forget to follow us for more powerful content that will keep you motivated and moving forward. Until next time, keep rising up and keep focusing on the things that make you shine.